Yeah, the Else News. The first bit of news here that we have is that Sabrina the Teenage Witch series is being picked up by Netflix with a 2-season order. So this is based on Archie Comics' The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina series. And this was originally in development at the CW in September as a potential companion to Riverdale. And it has, well, oh wow, I didn't see the episode thing, but it has landed a 20 episode, 2-season straight to series order at Netflix. Some of the big people behind this are, this actually comes from the same creative team as Riverdale, Roberto Aguilar Seicasa, Berlanti Productions and Warner Brothers Television, and Seicasa and Lee Toland Krieger are reprising their roles as the writer and the directors, respectively, of the pilot for Riverdale. They're doing the same thing for Sabrina.
And Roberto's also the one who's been writing the comic.
Yes. The cool thing with this for me is that this sort of answered a question or a fear that I've had for a while, that everyone's like, oh no, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. And that's the fact that the CW can't make all these shows. Like, they have 5 superhero shows that are going to be in series. They have now, with Black Lightning coming out, they have 7, unless I'm forgetting one, comic book property TV shows. Sabrina would have been the 8th. All of these except for iZombie, done by Greg Berlanti and his production team. So it got to the point where, and plus they still have their other strong shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Jane the Virgin.
Well, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend not performing well. Beloved, yes. Certainly beloved, certainly gets a lot of appreciation from the critics, but unfortunately not getting the views. Yes. And that's kind of a thing to be aware of, is that sometimes there are shows that, as much as we don't want to see them go, maybe it's not such a bad idea to have shows in the pocket ready to go when you just finally make that kill call and say this show's done, and that's why they develop stuff. Is how many things have we seen come and go really fast? And then you've always got your summer series, like here's where we're going to put in your game show about people throwing cows. I don't know. It doesn't seem outside the lines of what CW's done in the past in the summer, or your Amish in the city, or whatever you want to do. I'm not terribly surprised when they have more stuff in the can. Like, oh, well, where is this going to go in the schedule? What's it going to replace? Well, maybe it's not going to replace anything. Maybe it's just going to be where you'd normally see reruns. You'll see this. I still miss when there was TV on fucking Saturdays, when you could get actual new content. I just watched the 50th anniversary of Carol Burnett's show last night with my wife. Carol Burnett's show used to be a hugely popular program, was on at 10 o'clock on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
But everybody fucking watched it. So it's weird that Saturday nights are now a dead zone, that even the show that people would stay up late to watch on Saturday nights has been moved from 11:30 to 8 o'clock and then just replays at 11:30 after another rerun of it. It's totally off to me that it's just like nothing happens there. But that being said, I'm more, I don't know how to say this, not concerned, but surprised, I guess, that this is landing on Netflix. With I know that the CW already has some whatever relationship with Netflix, but it still seems like, was that the perfect place? Why not? Because they're co-owned by CBS. Why not on the CBS streaming app?
Supergirl.
What about Supergirl?
You look at Supergirl, another comic book property.
Very pretty.
That okay. I'm not talking about your search history here, but you look at you look at the first season of Supergirl that aired on CBS.
You
It was
can't
going to
handle my search history, by the way.
it was going to get canceled. But instead it went to the CW where it fits more. It fit better.
Right, it fits at
Um,
the CW, but what I'm saying is if you're going to take it and not use it at the CW, why not put it on your own existing streaming service that you're still trying to get to take off? Right now, the only thing that's compelling people to go there is Star Trek. You know, they desperately need content for the CBS streaming service, and
but
instead
then
they're giving content to Netflix.
But then to that regard, why not do CW Seed? They own it. They have a
Right.
bunch of content over there where they've got the Ray. They got like what five more comic book property things over there, including Constantine.
But
You know,
isn't
from
CWC free?
yeah.
Right. That's why.
Which means there's a low barrier to entry. It's ad supported, so people don't really like that. And there's a back catalog of a bunch of stuff from the UPN WB days. Like it's got like the game and girlfriends and like a whole bunch of other shows. And I'm like, oh, like this, and they do originals, and I'm like, I think I might check out that original. I just haven't yet.
Right. There's already not enough compelling stuff on the Seed for you to watch it. Like I know that they've had cartoons that relate to the CW superhero shows, and I haven't watched any of those. I haven't watched Vixen. I haven't watched The Ray, because I even before I was burnt out on the superhero shows on CW, I already didn't really give a crap about their animation tie-ins. Not to say they're bad, just not for me. But this is a moment of we're gathering our content back. Why are we going to sign a contract with Netflix and give them this exclusive content when we need to be drawing that stuff back into our own house?
Beat has the answer here, which is
Public nudity.
Like, yeah. No. Netflix has with the CW, they have I believe it's, with the exception of Riverdale, so I'm going to separate Riverdale for a second. All the CW shows air on Netflix 8 days after they end.
Right.
So if Jane the Virgin ends on March 7th, then 8 days later on March 15th, 15th, I don't know why I picked such a hard number to do math with. Boom, all the season is on Netflix. Same thing with that here in America with Riverdale. The difference is Riverdale around the rest of the world is a Netflix original. All the other superhero shows are not. They have their own, like
and that's the part I was missing. If Riverdale everywhere else is a Netflix exclusive, then putting the spinoff of Riverdale with that, and whether or not it's actually attached to it, that makes a certain degree of sense. Okay, that I can appreciate. Beat's trying to say it's too dark to be on CBS All Access, and I'm calling bullshit because I saw the pilot for Star Trek Discovery. It's like
not for he's I think he's saying more for CBS, not CBS All Access. But anyways,
he said CBS. Well,
not a fit for CBS.
I didn't expect them to put it on CBS proper, but I've been talking about CBS All Access. And like I said, the only reason why I'm saying that is because they need shows for that service to draw people in. And yeah, if you want to make it just like CBS TV, then you just create 1001 NCISs to put on there. If you want to actually get people in and give them something other than what's on CBS TV so that they feel like, oh, there's a reason I'm paying for this, then you create some variety and some new original content. But no, that makes sense. If it's Riverdale has got such
that's the thing,
a draw for Netflix. It just surprises me that they keep putting stuff out there. Now, CBS, CW, all these things are production companies. They want their shit watched. They want to get paid for their production and everything. They want people to find their content. Then maybe eventually when they become so gigantic with their content that people will chase them around, they can go and develop their own Disney-like service. But at this point in time, it's like you're putting the cart before the horse with CBS All Access.
The other part with the whole Riverdale Netflix thing, is that with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina going to Netflix, you pointed it out earlier. Who partially owns the CW?
CBS.
There you go. They don't have to deal with CBS. It gets strictly owned by Warner Brothers. So then they don't have to worry about, there, because I'm pretty sure CBS gave them an offer of, hey, you could put it on All Access and all this stuff. And if this was, 3 years into the future when CBS All Access has a lot of original content and is, I'm being optimistic here, and is a viable solution, they probably would have taken them up on that offer. But
I guess it depends on who Berlanti's master is. And I say that knowing I'm not really talking about slavery. Please don't think that's what I'm talking
about. He's who his loyalties are would probably be
right. Because is it Warner Brothers? Yes. Because he does a lot of stuff with Warner Brothers, but then he does stuff with Archie, which is not Warner Brothers. That's the thing, is we're not talking about a Warner Brothers property. We're talking about an Archie Comics property. And so but just because it's the same production company doesn't mean that it's anything WB itself related, and which case CBS could have been the backers for the Archie show. That's kind of the question, is he may have his hands in so many honeypots that it's not about who or where. It's like, well, just, we don't want this content for this channel. Maybe they just didn't like the show. Maybe that's really what it is CBS is like, no, we're good. We don't need a Sabrina. That last series she didn't last at all.
So to answer your question, Berlanti's loyalties are in Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers Television is one of the production companies for Riverdale and the distributor. So therefore, you look at everything that Berlanti is working on, it has 2 letters that are involved with a lot of his TV programming.
Are they FU?
No, W and B.
Yeah,
but
Supergirl was on CBS before. It didn't work out there.
Brothers produced.
Still Warner Brothers produced. That's what I'm saying. Is that and Warner Brothers producing versus Archie producing. It's. I think that's a guy who's trying to diversify, so he's not just the Warner Brothers TV show guy. Yeah. But at the same time, he's the Warner Brothers TV show guy.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty excited to see this. I'm glad that they're doing that. This is going to be short, concise seasons, because then, fit it in more with the Netflix timeline, not, the Netflix series order, less the American basic cable or, network TV of, let's do 22, 24 episodes a season, where we
Did you watch the first season of Riverdale?
I watched. Okay, so this is the point in the show I like to call Gregor's CW Roundup. First season of Riverdale, watched. Every other superhero show, comic book show on the CW, with the exception of iZombie last year, I watched. iZombie, I sort of fell out of love with it. This year, watched the first episode of Riverdale, and I'm like, maybe I'll watch it on Netflix, sort of deal. Got the same way with Arrow, got the same way with Supergirl, got the same way with Legends and Flash, but I'm using the Crisis on Earth X as my jumping back on point for Legends and Flash, because those had the most promise for me, with those shows. I loved the Dibny, I'm blanking on the first name, Ralph
Dibny. Yeah,
Ralph Dibny character. I loved that, and really wished they brought him in for Crisis on Earth X. With the Sabrina show being on CW, I feel like it would have fallen on the wayside. Because I mean, honestly, they're the only shows I'm really watching now on the CW are Flash, Flash Legends, and then I'm a couple episodes behind on Jane the Virgin. Everything else that I've been watching, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I've sort of, I think I said this before on a previous episode, it's gotten a little too crazy for my liking, to where I'm like,
eh. Well, the reason why I was asking if you watched Riverdale, I didn't. I am acutely aware that show is not for me. But as I understand it, the first season was a murder mystery.
Yes.
And it was a 22 episode season.
I believe no, it wasn't that long because it debuted. It was mid-season. Hold on. I want to say it was like 13.
Okay, because that's the question I was going to ask is, did it feel like the season was too long for that story? And does having Sabrina, now we don't know if Sabrina is going to be a mystery to solve or anything, but I'm sure if it follows the same sort of themes as Riverdale, that it's going to be some overarching story and then stuff that breaks it up along the way. Do we feel that Sabrina benefits because it's shorter? But if Riverdale itself wasn't along for a season, but you lost excitement for coming back for the second one, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah, I think so. The first season was 13 episodes of Riverdale. Second season is 22 episodes. And I think the reason why I've sort of lost interest in Riverdale is in the first episode of season 2, chapter 14, a kiss before dying, where it seemed like, and I didn't know that it was going to be a 22 episode season, but it seemed like it was one of these things where, all right, we're setting up this overarching thing that is going to happen over the course of however many episodes, which I hope I am wrong, because that, like, to do this, who's this masked killer, striking a little beat cut. I thought the same thing. The overarching. This seems like it's getting a little too close to me, to my comfort, to Gotham, with how Gotham's doing their horseshit shenanigans. And so I'm just like, I've been like, I don't want to watch Riverdale now. With, and I think another big part of it is, it seems like they're taking these characters, and I get that it's more based on, what is it, like Afterlife with Archie?
It is and it isn't. Afterlife with Archie was a zombie book that I think Roberto actually also wrote. But
yeah.
Are you saying Sabrina is taking on that aspect? Or I know that the Sabrina comic that it's quoting from is a spinoff from Afterlife with Archie.
The Riverdale TV show. It's not based off of the Mark Waid reboot of Archie.
It's not, right, and it's not rated.
It's not based off the digest. Yeah, it's not based off the digest. It's based off of one of those, like, Afterlife with Archie, like alternate dimension type books.
Right. It's out of continuity with the regular Archie stuff, but in the TV show, none of that context matters.
Yeah.
One thing that, so when Twin Peaks came out in 1990, the first season came in. It was a mid-season replacement, I think. It was 8 episodes for the first season. The first season was genius, but the biggest complaint from a lot of people was that they didn't tell us who the killer was. So we got 8 fantastic episodes, and they were very tight and very awesome. And then they came back for the second season. And in the second season, aside from ABC insisting that they tell us who the killer of Laura Palmer was kind of early on, the second season is a slog. And it's 22 episodes. And it feels like a lot of it is trying to discover what the show's going to be after they solve Laura's murder. But the Laura's murder solving didn't really give us answers. It's just like, and now here's 5 episodes of some bullshit with James. Everything with James is bullshit in Twin Peaks. But it's to get us to the point where we start to deal with stuff with Wyndham Earl and some other cool things that actually happen on the show. But yeah, and it seems like that might be what it sounds like you think Riverdale might be aiming for, is that the first season was 13 episodes got you through, it was complete, put down your fucking phone. And the second season is maybe going to feel too long to jump into right now and to dedicate to weekly viewing as opposed to getting to binge it when you're in a fucking mood for it.
I think that's the big thing. I think honestly that is one of the big things. And were you telling me to get off my fucking phone? Or
Yes, I was. Absolutely, I was.
Because I'm like, wait a minute. What? But no, I mean, it's like, because that makes a lot of sense, with with Twin Peaks, even with Riverdale, because that's my thought exactly, is they're going to drag this out over the course of the whole season. In the back of my head, I'm like, it's going to be 22 episodes. So I feel like, with the Sabrina thing, they've said, boom, 20 episodes over the course of 2 seasons.
2 seasons, right. 2 10-episode seasons. That sounds like it's par for the course for. It sounds par for the course for Netflix right now.
Yeah.
Even things like Fuller House, they're releasing in half seasons at a time, so you're getting, a group of episodes that you can binge watch and feel okay. Oh, I can't believe I sat through the whole 13 episodes in one weekend, but it's not as sickening as I can't believe I sat through 24 episodes in a day.
See, oddly enough, I had that exact opposite feeling with the 3rd season of Voltron Legendary Defenders, because it was like I'm like, this is too short, but I think it was only like 6 or 7 episodes as opposed to.
But don't you feel like too short is better than too long? That's not what she said.
I mean, sort of, because at that point it's like they told a lot of story in that, to where it was almost like you might as well do a movie as opposed to a short series or a short season. But I don't know. I'm excited for this. I think the other part is, honestly, and we hit it before, it's because it's going to be on Netflix, it could fall in the same vein as a lot of other shows who go on the streaming services right away and oh, we're not on a network, we can swear and we can do these other things that we can't do on a network and stuff like that.
Yeah, it depends. It's like Diamond Club. When they stopped being NSFW and they started being Night Attack, it was, oh, we can swear now, and you wondered if they were going to veer in that direction so hard that it was going to make it difficult to listen to. It's like, oh, because we can swear, we're only going to swear, that kind of thing. And that's a danger all the time. It's like the South Park movie. When we went to see the South Park movie years ago, it was like, oh, well, they can drop the F-bomb in this. But they celebrated it in such a way that it made it funny. It was part of the joke. It was part of the plot. It's like the swearing is the reason why the movie is what it is. But I totally get that's worrisome. If you have people who like the Archie series, who maybe shouldn't necessarily be watching the Archie series already because the themes are a little adult, to then have that next path be, oh yeah, you go from this over to Sabrina, which is, similar series, same creators and everything, and it's like, oh, and in Sabrina they bang, or like, I feel weird sometimes when I'm watching the Netflix superhero shows, the Marvel shows, because there is some kind of hardcore sex stuff in that, in a universe that, while we'll probably never see these characters cross over with Iron Man and Captain America and stuff, I just feel like, wow, that is, Luke Cage is really going to town on a lot of women. Right on, Luke Cage. Right on women who are sleeping with Luke Cage, because he's fine as shit. But just in general, it's like, there's some hardcore banging happening in this show, and it's not super graphic in nudity or anything, but it is like, so I got a sex scene in my Punisher show. Was not expecting that. it still feels a little weird. It's like reading Punisher and Spider-Man and then going to pick up a Punisher Max series and going, oh, okay, It's not that it's not okay. It's just it's a little bit off-putting when you're used to these characters being portrayed at a PG-13 level and then making it a little bit past that level.
Yeah. I have no segue.
Yeah.
The next story.
Why would you?
The next story is that Jude Law has been cast as the male lead opposite Brie Larson in Captain Marvel. Not to be confused, like I have done numerous times with Paul Bettany, who is already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Jarvis and later Vision. But yeah, he's as far as we know right now, he's in negotiations to play the male lead opposite Brie Larson. The word is that he could be playing Dr. Walter Lawson, aka Mar-Vell. So for those of you guys who do not know I'm gonna stick with the movie first. Captain Marvel, which you can see the statue behind me, and many other toys because I'm a big Captain Marvel fan. It's going to be set in the 90s. It's going to be set before the Avengers, but obviously after Captain America. And it's going to be Brie Larson as the female Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and all that. So people were sort of wondering, especially comic book fans who know the origin, well, how are you going to get this in here? Like, how are you going to do this, with including Mar-Vell, who was the Captain Marvel before her, and all that. And
for people who don't know the origin of the character, there was a Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers who went by Mar-Vell. He was part of the Kree, and he, in a very famous storyline, one of the first big graphic novel things that I remember seeing my first time in a comic shop as a kid was the death of Captain Marvel, and he died of cancer. But at that point in time, we had already been introduced to Carol in his series, and then she got her own spin-off series as Miss Marvel. She had received her powers essentially from him. I never had any of the Mar-Vell stuff, but I had the first issue of Miss Marvel, just like I had the first issue of She-Hulk and a bunch of other stuff. But I remember her more than I remember him, but I always remember the image of the Marvel superheroes gathered around him dying in a hospital bed, and how bizarre it was to see this very human, horrific but mundane death seemingly portrayed in a comic book with a superhero character, and how odd that was. So the question has been, since Carol took over the role of Captain Marvel several years back, and there are some people who, not even necessarily just for the sexist reasons, sometimes it's sexist reasons, but some people are just like, Mar-Vell is my Captain Marvel. I'm always like, well, Billy over at DC is my Captain Marvel, actually back when he was at Fawcett. But that's a different story. But that's because they grew up with Mar-Vell. They remember that, and they see him in the role. Carol taking over the role makes sense, just in the same way as Wally West taking over The Flash made sense. It sucks to lose. If Barry was your favorite character, losing Barry blows. But getting Wally as a Flash, it had to happen in the context of the story. It did. I think it was well done. And for years, Wally was the Flash, and when Barry came back, everybody's like, "What the fuck? Where's my Wally West, motherfuckers?" And if Carol suddenly went to a different identity, because she's had a few, and stopped being Captain Marvel, and Mar-Vell came back, a lot of people would complain, "Where's Carol? Why isn't Carol Captain Marvel anymore? Why would she just give that up?" That's difference of opinions. That's different of my favorite, your favorite. But it was a question was, in the movies, how is she going to get her powers? Is she going to be the first Captain Marvel? Are we going to skip past all the Mar-Vell stuff? And we don't know. But it seems like that's possible that we'll get the Mar-Vell. And it could be as simple as a passing of the torch. I don't want to really reference this movie, but it is how it fucking happened. The Green Lantern movie. He could be like the Abe and Sur to Carol. He could be like the doctor that gave Steve his powers and inspired him with his speech and everything, and kept offering him drinks that he wouldn't let him have. And Stanley Tucci was fantastic in that, and a very important role in the film, but fleeting. You know, he was there until he wasn't needed anymore. He did his part and he went on, and it was all Steve's journey anyways. So it's very likely this is all Carol's journey. And how big of a part would Marvel play in this journey? I don't know. But when I think about who could play the character, Jude Law seems like a really solid choice.
Yeah. I mean, the other bit of news that we have here is Ben Mendelsohn is on board playing the villain of the Captain Marvel movie. I'm honestly I'm loving this, and you did also forget to mention that, you know, the other one that this has already happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up to date, and that is Ant-Man with Hank Pym.
Yeah, but see, I consider that different because there wasn't that kind of relationship between them in the comics. It was seriously like Hank Pym was persona non grata for a long time in the comics, and they just tried to put anybody they could into a different Hank Pym identity to keep the character names and costumes running around without having the wife beater. I think they did a very good job of that. But I also think that in that case, Hank Pym is still part of it. Hank Pym is going to be in the next movie, in the sequel. So yeah, I don't know, but I do concede to your point. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also I should point out that the movie is expected to premiere on March 8th, 2019, and that Jude Law is going to be a very, very busy man, as he's already playing the role of young Albus Dumbledore in the Fantastic Beasts sequel, The Crimes of Grindelwald, and he's also attached to star in the third Sherlock Holmes film, which Warner Brothers is currently developing. And he just wrapped shooting Woody Allen's next movie starring Elle Fanning, and is about to start shooting the spy thriller, the Rhythm Section, opposite Blake Lively. So the dude is already in demand. And it depending on how this movie goes and what Marvel has plans for Marvel.
Don't make rhythm method joke. Don't make rhythm method joke. Don't make rhythm method joke.
You know, he could be very, very busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we've seen cast photos and stuff from the next Fantastic Beasts, so we've already kind of got an idea as to where they're in with production on that.
But will he have a mustache that he cannot shave?
Doesn't he have one in Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, he does.
That's right.
I believe his, because he plays Watson, if I remember correctly. I've not seen the Robert. Ooh.
That's right.
Sorry, I just had a thought about for Avengers 4. Like, they bring him because the rumor is that Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, is going to be in there. If there's a bit where we get Marvel in there, and he turns to Iron Man, and they do this little nod to the Sherlock Holmes franchise.
When I saw Iron Man the first few times, I kept thinking that it was Jude Law was Jarvis. It didn't occur to me that it was Paul Bettany at the time, but I kept thinking, oh, how great is that they've got Watson in Tony's ear? That would be great, especially because Watson is an artificial intelligence. But yeah, the irony wasn't there, unfortunately. I do like that they had Paul Bettany's wife, Jennifer Connelly, play the artificial intelligence in Spider-Man's suit, though.
Yes.
That was really awesome when I found that out. I'm like, no idea. I didn't even know they were together.
I didn't either. But no, it's the other part that I like is that apparently I'm not the only person who confuses them too. And it's like them, and then Matt Damon and I'm blanking on his name. He was in Pearl Harbor with Ben Affleck. Josh Hartnett. Like, those two got mixed up for me in the early 2000s. It was like, actually, those two groups right there, the Paul Bettany, Jude Law, and Matt Damon and Josh Hartnett, sort of were like interchangeable for me.
I always get Matt Damon confused with Fat Damon.
With Fat Damon.
Well, there was a guy who looks a lot like a not even fat, but a puffier version of Matt Damon, who was in season 2 of Fargo.
Yeah. But yeah, so the next thing, we're only on our story number 3 here, folks, is that fear not, the Joss Whedon Batgirl movie is still happening, sources say. This is after the, and I'm going to address a commenter who commented on our last episode. I think we made it pretty clear Corey has since then seen Justice League, that we hadn't seen it, and we were going based off of the numbers of the opening weekend and all this, and our fears.
What was the comment?
So the comment was along the lines of, how can you guys judge a show or judge something that you haven't seen? Which is a fair enough comment, but I am not judging it based on the content of the movie. I will save that for when I finally do see Justice League. And yeah, he goes, why are you even commenting on a movie you didn't see?
If I was saying that it was a review, then yes, I would agree that that's something that doesn't make a lot of sense. Here's my review of a movie that I didn't see, or I only saw half of, which is why I tried to be very careful to not review, especially because I have given harsh reviews in the past to the 2 movies that came before it. I didn't want to treat that movie unfairly, but yeah, that wasn't what the story was about. That's like saying, you can't talk about the new Star Wars movie and someone who's doing effects for it because the new Star Wars movie isn't even out. So how do you even know? Well, because it said in the news story that he's doing effects for it, and that's what we're talking about. We're going off of past experience with the guy and how we think that will go, but we're reserving judgment, which I guess isn't something that you can do in a YouTube comment.
Yeah, basically with how this guy saying, hey, we should only review stuff is according to this guy, which, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing the dude. I'm just saying,
he asked a question and give an answer, and it's hey, we got a comment on a YouTube video. That's pretty good for us. That's
not one of the kids from my church. I think you guys should swear at him.
No, I think that is reasonable question to ask if the circumstances were a little different. But to be fair, the video was about Justice League and had Justice League in the title, and the person maybe came to it assuming that it was a review of Justice League because that's what was pouring out onto different sites at that point in time. Everybody was talking about Justice League. Most of the people who reviewed it, I'd like to think, saw it. Yeah. That's just not what our content was that week. To step back for a second, because I don't want to give a full review of it, but I will say there was parts I liked about the new Justice League movie. I've seen the whole thing now. There were definitely things that I took issue with, and it seems likely that it all stems from the same thing of history of, I know what I enjoy from these types of characters. I know what I enjoy as far as movies. And I don't personally take to Zack Snyder's style of filmmaking and storytelling. For me, we're just not a good match. That doesn't mean he's a bad director or a bad storyteller. It just means that I'm not the one who's going to go seek out his stuff. But I also don't like foreign films all written in French. They're not my first pick. Doesn't mean I won't watch them, won't give them a try. And if I see one that really impresses me, I'll say, that was great. I'm surprised. But unfortunately, so far in the history of Zack Snyder movies, all the ones I've seen have not agreed with me. It's okay. It's okay to not like something. But there were parts that I liked in the new Justice League movie, and I'm pretty sure from what I have seen and what I picked up from experience that they were probably the stuff that was reshot by Joss. or come up with completely by Joss. And then even in those things, there were still things that were not great, because I think it was a really hard movie to make under the circumstances of it. But I felt like for me, it was some steps in a more preferable direction. And I feel bad because so many great people were involved in it, and it's getting some shit that is probably deserved. But it's unfortunate because it seems like there's a lot that they learned and that they could do going forward to improve the franchise. And I just don't know if they're going to get the opportunity or not.
Yeah. So back to the article that originally spawned this off, because we are getting dangerously close into LCU's territory. I guess there was a rumor. I did not see this rumor. I do not know. Wow, that sounded like Donald Trump there. I apologize. But that Joss.
Well, did you
Whedon
start the rumor?
was...
Because if you started the rumor and then deny knowing that the rumor existed, that's
no. But so there was a rumor that Joss Whedon was quietly dumped from writing and directing the upcoming Batgirl movie, and it was based on the somewhat critical reviews and the middling box office performance of Justice League, which Whedon co-wrote and managed its directorial reshoots. Which if that was the case, it would be understandable, like for a manner of speaking. But
it's like getting an engineer to work on the Titanic during its first cruise. It's like, you dumb motherfucker. You let the ship sink. Dude, I didn't build the fucking ship. I was just here when everything went fucking wrong. I turned a fucking screw or 300 trying to stave off the water, but you dumb sons of bitches are the ones who put the thing in the fucking ocean to begin with. Why do I get fucked? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that he's, people were saying this. A lot of it's because he also made headlines by favoriting tweets, or a tweet slamming Justice League's villain Steppenwolf, which suggests his feelings about the project must be interesting.
Which he was right to do.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Also, I'm going to put on a quick little side thing, because the two articles I've hated seeing with this is both have the same headline from numerous different sources. Fans petitioned for Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And then later on, fans petition for Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. I'm like, there's a part of me, but I am a lazy son of a bitch, that goes, I want to put on a change.org thing of, and just be no fan or no Joss Whedon or Zack Snyder cut of the movie, just the theatrical release of the movie. And boom, we're done. And see how many views that gets, and if it makes headlines and stuff like that.
It's funny because in both cases they would be incomplete movies, which is sort of what it already was. But realistically, in both cases you would get some of a movie, but not the whole thing, because Snyder didn't complete his film for horrible circumstances that were no fault of his own, and Joss only shot what needed to be shot for what was left and what he and the production company decided they wanted to alter. I said jokingly on a message board earlier today, I go into a Best Buy store, I buy the Joss Whedon version of Justice League, I open up the Blu-ray case, there is a copy of Serenity. I feel perfectly okay with my purchase. That's a thing, is there's never going to be a perfect cut of this movie. And certainly not by anybody's taste. And I swear to God, if one of the directors had done the whole thing, there would not be a perfect cut of a movie, because you can't have a perfect cut of a fucking movie. Someone's got opinions that are different than yours. Even if they match up 99.9% of the time, there's still going to be that one little thing, and the internet is going to nitpick that shit to fucking death. They did the best they could. The circumstances were hard. There was a mustache. It all just fucking came together in the wash, and all your whites became pink because there was a red sock in there. No red underwear. But I get it, is that we deserve better. And our argument is, what would be better? We don't know. We haven't seen better of the Justice League yet. We've just seen a Justice League movie that overall should still be impressive that they did it. It's just, I personally feel there were shortcuts that were taken that shouldn't have been to get there. Whatever, man. It's a film, and out of that film, I think we got a pretty compelling version of certain characters. One that I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed was Cyborg, who I thought was just going to be the dishwater of the movie, and saying that next to Aquaman. But I think the actor and the writing all came together to make him interesting and cool. I liked his portrayal, and that was a huge surprise to me.
So let me ask you a question here.
Yeah,
and I do know we're off in the Batgirl. Basically, here's what I'm gonna say about the Batgirl article. He's still writing, he's still directing the Batgirl movie. I'm fine with that, because it's my biggest thing with the DCEU or the DCFU, whatever they're calling themselves this week, is that we need more people doing these works, doing their best to do this. We can't have just a small handful of people doing all these big tentpole superhero characters trying to do this universe when they're not hitting the mark. Now, my question on Cyborg, because I had seen in one trailer, or in one like TV spot trailer thing, that he sounded like a robot, and then in another one he sounded more human. How did he come across to you when you watched the movie? Was he actually, more, how did they stray that line with his voice?
I can't remember if they did some sort of digital editing to his voice. They probably did, and it would make sense they did, but I felt like his personality felt human. And he didn't feel like he was some artificial intelligence. He felt like a real guy who'd gone through some shit, which, if you know the character, you understand what that reference is.
So, yeah, that actually answered my question, because I actually said that I misworded it, because that's what I meant, because with the one, it sounded like he was just like his humanity was gone, and then in the other one, it sounded like how he's portrayed everywhere else, including the comics, where this is still Victor Stone, but he's just now also robot. He just now has robot parts.
One of the things I saw, again, this is somebody tweeted, and so there has to be a blog post about it somewhere, was that somebody reacted to the fact that in a kind of end moment for the character, he says "booyah," and that person said this made it so obvious that no Black people were consulted to write this film, because Cyborg said "booyah," even though Cyborg is most widely known for being in 2 cartoon series based around the Teen Titans, and the character says "booyah" in those series. Doesn't really say him in his own comic. Well, he does now, but it's, again, came from the cartoon series and the popularity of that over the comic book version of the character, where he's not even in the Teen Titans. I just, man, comics are an imperfect thing. I dealt with Nightwing having a mullet for fucking years, and it was way past the time that anybody in real life would have been okay with a mullet. But this was supposed to be the coolest, sexiest looking young superhero in the comics, and he's got like the fucking flat top with the long back,
front, party in the back.
Seriously, a full on Joe Dirt for a long time. Superman had a mullet and wore a fucking ponytail as Clark Kent for a long fucking time, and we were all supposed to be all right with it. You'd almost think that comics were created by nerds and people who are not really up on fashion or hip slang. I say, to relate to you children and your Pac-Man. But but if you walk away from the movie and your biggest complaint about it is that Cyborg said "booyah," and that otherwise marred what was an incredible masterpiece by the unknowing team of Snyder and Whedon, I have to think maybe there's deeper issues out there, bro.
Yeah.
As far as Batgirl,
So
this is a movie that wasn't on the radar until Whedon was announced working on it. Nobody was saying there's going to be a Batgirl movie until all of a sudden it's like, Joss Whedon's going to do a Batgirl movie. I mean, Joss Whedon, the guy who said fuck off to superheroes because Marvel just drove him absolutely fucking nuts, is going to go over to DC and do a Batgirl movie? Holy shit. And it's because Joss was around to do that Batgirl movie that I think Warner Brothers decided to pull him in to help with Justice League when they needed someone to step up. And they said, well, we do have the motherfucker who did a couple Avengers movies that both made $1 billion. Do you think we should ask him his opinion? And you can argue that Avengers 2 was maybe not the greatest movie in the world, but it still performed. You can argue that Justice League is the greatest movie in the world. It hasn't performed. Whatever the case, I don't think there was anything in the air of, well, we got to get rid of Joss to have someone else take up the torch of Batgirl, because no one was screaming for a Batgirl movie besides me and Gail Simone. I love the character. I've always loved the character. Beats asking, is the character going to be pre-Killing Joke or post-Killing Joke? Because a lot of the character was made more interesting by being Oracle. Thing is, I love Oracle as well because I love Barbara Gordon. I fucking hate the Killing Joke. I think it is a piece of shit story. I think it is a piece of shit thing to do to the character to try to give her agency that she doesn't fucking need. She's just fine on her own. But if you want to have her be someone who has gone through being a paraplegic and then somehow being recovered from it, or if you want to have it be, this is a movie before Batgirl becomes a paraplegic, I don't know. But I'm just willing to watch it because I like Joss Whedon movies and because I really like Barbara Gordon. And I'll give it a fucking shot. I've sat through all these fucking movies so far, and the only one that I can say was mostly great was Wonder Woman, and even that I have problems with. So sure.
So Beats pulling up the evidence from the article that the untitled Batgirl movie is based on the Batgirl story that was first unveiled in DC Comics in 1967. So this would be pre-Killing Joke. My answer to this is going to echo you in ways, because I look at how Brandon Fletcher, Babs Tarr, and Cameron Stewart did Batgirl for the New 52. One of the best books in the New 52, bar none. You know, Batman might be.
Some people would really argue with that. Some people think it was the downfall of the whole New 52 is when they started doing the DCU stuff. I like that book. I like those creators on that book. But I love Gail Simone, and it bummed me out that I didn't enjoy her run on it as much because I felt the tone was off from what I expected from a Gail Simone Batgirl book.
Yeah, same here. But so you cut to them doing the Batgirl of Burnside, which is what she's been as now and stuff like that. And they retconned the Killing Joke. They basically said to that producer or that editor who said cripple the bitch, fuck you. That's essentially what they said, you know, to this dude who's probably way out of comics or passed away or whatever, I don't know. And that's what I like, because you can now still tell compelling stories, but you don't have to base it off of a story that's in all of comic book history and since then it's based on a tertiary character. Well, it's Barbara Gordon who's used as a plot point in here in the Killing Joke.
Let's God, we're gonna go so long. Let's look at a couple things. One is a problem with Batgirl as a character is the same problem as there is with Supergirl as a character, which is they are both built off of the existence of another male character. Supergirl doesn't exist without the context of Superman. And so you have to be able to do a Supergirl TV series in which a Superman exists, but can be her own thing and have her own power and doesn't constantly like, I wish Superman would come here and fix this. Batgirl based her entire identity off of Batman. She wore the costume for a masquerade party and then sees a crime happening, decides to fight the crime because that is the kind of person that she is. She was heroic, but she wasn't looking to be a superhero. And then realized that she had abilities to do that on the regular, but again, inspired by Batman, and for a while was trained by Batman and Robin, if you're going by the original origin of the character. So in both of those cases, you have to not steal agency away from the lead characters of their own film by having them be beholden to these other characters who are obviously more well-known and probably more bankable. And that's a tough thing to already go into. On top of that, I'm going to give you the death of Gwen Stacy. Okay. Because the death of Gwen Stacy was a very highly revered Spider-Man story. It earned what it was, because Gwen Stacy was a very important character to Peter Parker in the comics for a long time. It was before there was really Mary Jane around. She was beloved. She was the girlfriend, and everybody loved that character. The death of the Phoenix, the death of Jean Grey to become Phoenix, and then Dark Phoenix and all that stuff. Same sort of thing. It's like, it is, in some cases, the most interesting stories that these characters have. Spider-Man, Death of Gwen Stacy is up there as one of the biggest, most important Spider-Man stories, not only of its time, but since. You can say things about Venom, you can say things about Kraven's Last Hunt, and those are all very good, but Death of Gwen Stacy is a top kick-ass story because it did things right, but it also did something horrific. And when they did the death of Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 2, it didn't feel earned. It was a huge fucking downer. It relieved us of one of the high points of those film series in the fact that we lost a lead actress who was terrific and was one of the most compelling things up on the screen. And it was also a shit story around it. Like, the stuff with Electro and everything was bad. They tried to do Dark Phoenix really quick in the X-Men movies. It was like, we're just trying to get to this one X-Men story that everybody loves. Yeah, but there were so many fucking X-Men stories and years of getting to know these characters. And you hadn't utilized Jean Grey well at all in the movie so far, so that you kill her off in the second one and then bring her back in the third one, and there's no reasoning behind it for film goers, so it doesn't work. And again, shit movie around it. So to say, here's Batgirl, and we're immediately going to start by crippling her by the Joker shooting her and then working her back into being Batgirl. Well, first of all, that sounds like the last Batman movie in the trilogy before the DC Extended Universe, where Batman's like broken and then he comes back and then he gets broken again, but then he comes back again and then he dies, but he's not really dead, and he marries Catwoman. Spoilers. I would rather just see a great fucking Batgirl movie. I'd rather see Barbara Gordon being heroic and being her own thing. And yes, you have to lay out the fact that she is in some way related to the Batman universe and has the same kind of motif as another well-known character. But I just want to see, you can do so much more with that character than just the Killing Joke over and over and over again.
Yeah. I honestly don't think Joss Whedon would actually do that, would do the Killing Joke. What I think they do is, and I'm not a writer, I don't claim to be at all. They start the movie with whoever the actress is that's playing Barbara Gordon. She is talking about the two men who influenced her in her life, her father and Batman. And you have this little like montage-y thing of, her, like you said, with the origin of her at a masquerade ball and then going to fight crime, and then boom, cut to the future, however many months later or years later, she is Batgirl. That's your start right there. And it's, you're still tying her in with Batman, but it's not, oh, well, here's a whole movie where she's training with Batman. He's sitting there telling her, go and cook me a sandwich or whatever, sexist thing from the 60s.
Papa Spank. Yeah. No, the other thing is Joss Whedon, 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, says that Joss can do a story that isn't the Killing Joke and be compelling and feature a female lead and not make her entire raison d'etre be about some dude. So that's what my hopes are hanging on. And I really want this to be a spectacular, but I want a really great Nightwing movie. And I don't even know the dude who's in charge of that, but what he's talking about sounds pretty fucking cool for a Nightwing movie. Jamo.
So, yeah. So I'm going to really quickly do this last bit of story because we are going to go long and I cannot afford to go long here. But that is that the Murder on the Orient Express movie is getting a sequel. It's going to be called Death on the Nile. Kenneth Branagh and Michael Green are going to be coming back to. Michael Green is going to come back to write it, and Kenneth Branagh is expected to come back as the director and reprise his role as Hercule Poirot. The Death on the Nile was first published in 1937 and saw the detective on vacation in Egypt and becoming involved in a love triangle gone mysteriously bad.
Yeah, it's one of the Poirot movies that I just recently was rewatching from the 70s, I think, late 70s, and very good movie. Obviously, based off of the Agatha Christie book. Before that, I have not seen the new movie yet. I'm excited to see it, but I just haven't had the opportunity. So, I guess it's great that it had the success it needed to be able to get cleared for a sequel. That's very promising. Yeah. The other thing that's fun is that in both the Poirot movies that I've watched from the classics and what they did in this and Murder on the Orient Express is that it brings together such a giant kind of all-star cast to do that. And that's a lot of fun, to see that kind of big display of all these actors playing these interesting parts and what they get to do with that ensemble is neat. And that's part of the joy of watching something like this. So yeah, I would love to have a whole series of Poirot stuff being done in the films. But again, I have so much other shit of his to watch already between the movies that exist and the TV series that I need to work my way through. But
true,
when they start showing up on cable, you can bet I'm going to watch them. They're going to go to the top of my list really fast.
So that is it for the Else News. We will be right back for the Else Views. And as a reminder, guys, you can help us out by filling out our survey over at bit.ly/E_N_S for survey 2017. That is EN survey 2017. And also, if you want to help out the network, you can go to gncasts.com/support. And on there, you'll find our Patreon. You go there, you subscribe $1 an episode, or not $1 an episode, $1 a month, and you're helping us to keep the lights on. That's all we're asking. Help us keep the lights on. gncast.com/support.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.